In this video, I want to share with you 3 tiers of revenue that I think every business should have if we're going to create businesses that are sustainable, that grow, and that ultimately lead to wealth creation over time. Most businesses, they have one, maybe they have two, very few have three. I've spoken to multiple business owners over the last couple of weeks, and I always find myself encouraging them to find a way to get to the third tier. And so in this video, I want to share with you what those 3 tiers are and why I think in particular the third one is so important. It's pretty simple. I didn't invent this. I just was fortunate because the business that I bought almost 20 years ago had two of the three, and the folks that I bought it from had actually started to use the third pretty successfully in a separate entity. I bought the one business and then I sort of combined those two, also separate, but they really function as one. And here's what it comes down to. I think every business should find a way to have recurring revenue. Revenue that you know is coming in every single month that you can count on, that's on a contract, that actually creates value for whoever it is that you're serving. For us in that particular business, it's property management revenue and maintenance revenue. People have us manage their properties, maintain their properties. They don't want to have to deal with it. They don't want to have to think about it. They really want to do as little as they possibly can in most cases because it's supposed to be a passive investment for them. Our job is to help make it to be as passive as possible. And so those are typically going to be 1-year contracts, sometimes 2-year contracts. They auto renew. And listen, as long as we're doing a good job, as long as we're doing what they've hired us to do, it's really sticky. They stay with us for a really long time. And sometimes they sell their property and we'll have to get new accounts. But generally speaking, that recurring revenue, it's very consistent. And my goal when I first started was always, I want my recurring revenue to cover my monthly nut. I want it to cover everything that we spend on a monthly basis, including what I want to pay myself in the form of a salary. It took me, I want to say, about 3 years to get to that point. So for the last 15 or so years, I've known that monthly revenue, that recurring revenue is going to pay all the bills. So if you don't have recurring revenue in your business, or if your recurring revenue hasn't gotten to the point where it's paying all the expenses, I would highly encourage you to get to that point, to start thinking, to brainstorm on what could lines of recurring revenue look like for me in my business, you in your business in this example. The second is what I call growth revenue. And that for us in this particular business that I'm sharing with you is commissions. We have a brokerage and a leasing arm of our business. And so we'll go out there and we'll help people sell their buildings, buy buildings, lease their buildings, lease a building. And every time we do that, somebody in our office is getting paid a commission. And those commissions can be on the small end, $2,500, and on the high end, they could be $700,000. Right? But these are less frequent. They're less consistent. They ebb and they flow. They go up and they go down. But over time, we know that they're coming in. And so for us, that's all extra income. And so I would encourage you in your business, find something that is that nice pop that you can get, something like a commission for you. Recently, I was talking to a friend of mine who's a web developer. And so they have recurring revenue. They've got people on maintenance contracts, security contracts, development contracts, change contracts. You know, you got to update your software that you've developed over time. And then they have actual new software projects. That's like a 50 grand or 100 grand to go out there and to develop something new for someone. So most businesses are already thinking about those two pretty well. Maybe they're not doing them as good as they could, but they're at least thinking about them. And I would say for you, really be thinking about and executing on a plan to develop those two lines where recurring revenue covers all the bills, and then that growth revenue is really that extra income that you can use to either continue to grow your main business or go into the third revenue stream, which for me is what I call the wealth revenue. And so for us in our business, we have the property management and maintenance income. We have the commission income. That's our growth income. And then from that, we get to decide, do we want to put some of that profit from those two sources of income back into growing that business that generates those two sources of income, or this other business I have, which generates what I call the wealth income. And here's the delineator. See, in my business, we might get on a good day 4 to 6 times profit in an exit multiple. So if I wanted to go sell this operating business that does property management and brokerage, for every dollar of profit that we generate every year, we might get paid $4 to $6 in a sale. So if I take all that growth income from the brokerage and the leasing and I put it back into growing that operating business, I know that if I can do it and I can grow that business, those two streams of income, for each dollar of growth, I'm going to get $4 to $6 of equity. Okay, but instead, what we often do is we'll take some of that money, we'll reinvest it into growing that operating business. We'll take the majority of that income and we'll actually find properties of our own to buy. So we'll go out and we'll raise money from investors, and then we'll take our own money and we'll go out and buy our own properties. Because when we buy a property and then we grow the income of the property, when we go to sell that property later, instead of getting 4 to 6 times our profit, which we would get in our business, we get 16 to maybe on the high side, 20 or 25 times. And so from a capital allocation standpoint, assuming we keep our risk at bay, investing in our own properties is much more profitable, much greater wealth building opportunity over the long run than reinvesting in that business. Now for us, I was fortunate in that I picked a business where we could do all 3 of those things inside of what really operates like one vehicle. They're separate entities, but they really operate as one vehicle. And what's great is when we go buy our own properties, because our partners want those to be passive as well, just like our clients in the property management business, then we go ahead and we manage those properties. And so you have this fly where the recurring revenue pays the bills. The growth revenue is what you can utilize then to go into the wealth revenue, which is to buy those assets. And then those assets grow the equity and the cash flow. They do both in real estate faster in many cases than the actual operating company. And it's a great model. I don't know why more people aren't thinking this way, especially with that third tier. So I have this friend who I was telling you about, software developer, and I said, listen, you kind of got number 1 down. I would say grow that to the point where it covers all your bills. Number 2 is like, those are fun projects you get to take on. Those are things you care about and they make you extra money. But then start looking for opportunities. Number 3, what software do you want to build for yourself, even if you have to raise some money? Or what clients are bringing you opportunities in bucket number 2 that you might think, instead of taking my fee, I'll take some of it in the form of equity. You wouldn't do that very often. You have to be selective, very picky. I understand that. But this idea of like, how do you go from just looking at income, like monthly income, annual income, to wealth building opportunities? And I think that's where in the entrepreneurial world, most of our clients, most of our partners in our projects are successful entrepreneurs. And the best ones are not the ones that often have businesses that just make money every year. They're people who can take that money and reinvest that capital, right? Be good stewards, good allocators of capital, where they take some of the money out of there and they put it into things that are going to generate higher multiples than the thing they're building. Because here's the deal. Most small businesses are going to go 2 on the high end, 10 times earnings. Right? Most investment vehicles where you're truly passive, real estate, commercial real estate, stocks, private equity, you're going to get maybe, like I said, 16 to on the high end, you could be 100 multiple. So just be thinking about that. Look in your business. When you turn this video off, think about, where are there opportunities for recurring revenue? If I already have recurring revenue, how can I get it to the point where it's covering all the bills? And then if all you have is recurring revenue, like let's say you're a landscaper, you got to start thinking, hey, I'm mowing lawns and that's all recurring revenue. Okay, but then what's the nice pop? Right? Maybe that's landscaping projects. Maybe that's hardscapes. Just find something where you can generate 10 times, let's say, your recurring monthly bill in a one-time pop. And then when you've got that, you got to think, well, what's the next thing that I can generate that's 10 times greater than that? There's a great book, 10x is easier than 2x. And I think sometimes, I can't speak for Ben Hardy, so I don't know if he would apply it this way, but I'm not thinking just always in the sense of how do I 10x my business? I'm also thinking, how do I find revenue streams that are 10x greater than the last one? My monthly fee, what's 10 times greater than that I can do in a one-time fee? What's 10 times greater than that I can do in a wealth building environment? So that's what I like to call the revenue stack for building wealth. It's how you use your operating business to parlay it into creating more wealth in whether it's the same kind of business, the same business lane, or a completely separate investment vehicle. But ultimately, I think if you're not doing the third tier, you're selling yourself short. And I think that we should all be doing it. If you want to learn more what that could look like for you in your business, you can head over to the website moveright.me and you can register for one of our upcoming meetups. We do weekly meetups live over the internet where we take things like this. Hey, I got this situation. This is what I'm trying to build. This is where I'm trying to go. I'm not exactly sure what to do next. And you could actually share that with a group of folks who are on a journey just like you, and we try and work out, we try and architect a plan for how do you go from where you are to where you want to be. And these are the kinds of things that we tackle. Again, moveright.me. We'd love to have you. You can sign up. If you like this video, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe and share it with a friend if you got somebody that you know who could benefit from what I shared here today. And I will see you next time.